Welcome to the Simply Biz Shifting Gears Gear Down aspect of the program. Can I ask someone to let me know if you can hear me just via the chat group, the chat tab, as it were, so that we can get going. Renee says hi, so I'm assuming you can hear me. Excellent. Thanks, Ilana. I can see your message. Much appreciated. So my aspect of gearing down made me think of something that is really close to my heart, and that's cars, you know. So when do you gear down? Now, I know the idea of shifting gears, gear down, is to look at the aspect of maybe slowing down the business, maybe changing the way you do business. And I want to suggest that there are two reasons why you're going to gear down. And the one is when you are coming to a stop street. So clearly then you're going to gear down. And I suppose that was the idea with the shifting gears project. But there's also another time when you gear down. And that is when you're wanting to overtake another vehicle and you need a dash of speed and power, and that's when you gear down. So I'm hoping this morning that the gear down presentation is going to help you rather than stop, but to actually accelerate your business and move on ahead with new speed, new enthusiasm, and new motivation. So that's the way I want to approach this morning, if you don't mind. Obviously, one of the biggest challenges you're going to have as a business owner in these tough times is, should you carry on or shouldn't you carry on? So I'm hoping that after this morning session, you will want to carry on. But if you really want to just do a sanity check and see whether it's worth your while, there's two things I want to suggest you have a look at. One is just sit down with your business information at hand and do what we call a net asset value check. In other words, do your assets, does your asset base of your company or your business exceed its liabilities? If that's the case, that's a very good sign. If you're experiencing a cash flow problem, maybe you have a look at your cash flow for the next season. I want to say season and not few months this time, because very often a business will accelerate through a season, but when it's an off season, we tend to have less cash flow, less business, and we tend to maybe be a bit concerned. So rather work your cash flow until you're through your next season, whether that be a December, whether it be a summer, whether it be a winter, and have a look if your cash flow is going to be able to fix the situation coming through the season. You know, you can do that maybe in the meantime, looking at getting creditors on side, asking them if you can pay them maybe a little bit later, 30 days, 60 days, putting a payment plan in place if you can't actually meet those obligations on a monthly basis. Or we'll talk about this a little bit later. Can you apply for funding? And maybe looking for an investor to help your business. So I don't want you to look at this as being saying, well, this is geared down, I'm going to stop. I want you to look at this as being gearing down in order to overtake this current situation that we find ourselves in with the pandemic and the junk status and all those other things that are making us business owners a little bit concerned right now. So I've been asked to talk about quick cost-cutting wins that you can apply today. Well, there are a few, and that clearly by no means this is not an exhaustive list. You may have ideas, but I just jotted down a few ideas that I thought as business owners today, we can actually see and implement on an easy win basis. So the first sort of strategy I want to suggest is, if you're renting premises or if you've got heavy duty equipment, is there a way you can sublet and cut your rental costs? Or can you rent out or hire out that equipment to generate a bit of extra income and to share the costs of maintaining that equipment? So subletting is actually not a bad option. or maybe you want to check whether you can operate from home with a designated office. I find that in this time, there's so much remote working going on that it's changed the face of doing business today. So that might be an option. Cut your rental costs to its bare minimum. Some of us need to have offices where clients can pop in on a regular basis, but maybe you don't need that huge office anymore. You know, so idea is to sweat those assets. In other words, you've got items, you've got assets. What can I do to actually make them generate more money for me without incurring any additional costs? Obviously, any cost-cutting ideas, there's one very, very big caveat, one big condition, and that is be very careful of cost-cutting that impacts upon the quality of the service that you offer your clients or the product that you offer your clients. So have a look at those other aspects of your costs that you can reduce. So now one of the costs we have as small business owners relates to staff costs. And just a word of caution here, the laws are very strict when it comes to dealing with staff reductions. There are certain processes you got to follow, and I would really recommend you speak to somebody in that space when you're considering cutting staff. Then a very simple way to get a cost down, potentially, obviously, is to talk to your short-term broker. You know, things have changed now. Maybe your value of your assets have changed. Maybe your business insurance needs have changed. My personal short-term broker saved me a small fortune over COVID, and she was proactive, and I'm very grateful to her, and it was such an easy win. So if your short-term insurance broker hasn't done that right yet, pick up the phone, phone them and tell them, is there any way I can reduce my short-term insurance costs? Obviously, there may be a trade-off, so talk to the experts. Talk to the experts. By the same token, talk to your financial planner. He may have some ideas for you, or she may have some ideas for you on your long-term insurance. Just last week, I was talking to a client, or potential client in Johannesburg, and when I looked at her portfolio, I could see that she had some cash values that she could access and perhaps help her business through this tough time. Again, you've got to be very careful that you don't cancel any policies that you need and then can't actually get the cover again. So the financial planners today are under strict rules when it comes to replacing policies, and there's quite a lot of red tape that they've got to go through in order to make sure that the person that is winning in the scenario is you, the client, and that it's not just a commission-generating exercise. But very definitely, especially if you have old life insurance policies, there may be a way to actually save costs and generate some cash flow out of those policies. Clearly, you want to talk to your banker at this point in time. They may be in a position to renegotiate your bank charges. Maybe the interest that you're being charged is a point of the debate. We all know that interest rates have dropped dramatically. So especially if you're tied into an asset-based finance or a purchase that has got a high interest rate, can you not negotiate those financing costs? If you have, for example, a vehicle or an asset that's been paid off, it's not really nice to refinance it, but maybe that could be a way of preventing your business from ceasing or stopping, and it's a win-win then if you're able to refinance some of your assets. Again, just be very, very careful that you don't have a advantage that can never be corrected. So refinancing of assets is a one way. I know at the moment there's quite a lot of talk about what they call lease and buyback, And sort of for those that may not know, it works very simply like this. I have a farm and I've got a truck that I need to utilize for transporting my product, and I can't afford to pay that installment. So I sell the truck off to somebody and then I lease it back, obviously on a lower rental basis, because it's now going to be at a lower rate than maybe the interest that I'm paying or the installment that I'm paying. Otherwise, there's no point. So sale and leasebacks or lease and buybacks are an option, but just be careful of those again. Speak to your financial professional, maybe your accountant if you have one. If you don't have one, it may be well worth the couple of rand that you're going to spend in order to make sure that you're doing the right thing. So yeah, have a look at that kind of option as a quick cost-cutting win that you can apply today. And of course, you've got the age-old problem that we as business owners have in the retail space, and that is you have so much stock on your shelf and it's not moving. Now, stock on your shelf, quite honestly, is money sitting on your shelf doing nothing. So you've got two things to do, I think. The one is, and I'm very hesitant to say this, but is there not a way you can reduce the price to get that stock moving, just to generate the cash flow that we need to get through this tough time? I'm not very keen on discounting a product because obviously you've done your homework and you know what it is that you need to sell the product or the item for, so that you can make a profit. But if it's a trade-off between staying in business and cash flow that's going to save the business, you may want to just have a look at how you can reduce that product price by way of discount, if that's going to help. Or maybe what you can do is package your slow-moving stock items with your faster-moving stock items. For example, reduce the joint cost and offer it as a special for a while. Why I'm not keen on discounting unless it's absolutely necessary is because, think about it, when we're out of the situation, when are you going to, and how are you going to increase your price back to the normal? So just be aware of that, but that is an option. And also, this might be a great time to get some stock management in place. I know we like to talk about the JIT principle, or the just-in-time principle, where you buy stock just in time to sell it again. Just be aware that you don't get caught without stock, and then obviously you've got no sales. So yeah, I think stock is a problem for a lot of retail business owners, and they've got to think of ingenious ways of actually moving that stock. And there's nothing better than sitting around a table with people that you know and working out winning ways, as it were. So yeah, I think those are the sort of the quick cost-cutting wins you can apply today. There's numerous other factors that you can implement, but these are pretty quick, you know. So you're going to, obviously, if you're going to go for the option where you're going to apply for finance, that could be a little bit more tricky. So finance and funding, I'll call it the F factor, and not the F that you're thinking of. That is, F stands for, first of all, we start looking for finance and funding from our friends. Once we've either been exploited that or we've been denied that, then we start moving on to our family and start asking them if there's any way they can assist us with finance. So there's a way to obtain finance and funding. On a more of a softer note, just be careful that you don't jeopardize that family or friendship by getting funding and then not being able to meet your obligations. So I think whether you're looking for funding from family and friends, you still should go through the same process then when you're looking for financial institutions as a source of funding for your business through this time. So you ask, well, what's the last F4 then? So we've got family, we've got friends, we've got financial institutions. Well, when all else fails, maybe there's a fool out there that you can actually approach and ask for some money. Now, the bottom line with all these people, you should actually just not approach them on a normal basis. I would like to suggest, and you know, the essential guide to small business by Nedbank, it's a free downloadable booklet on page 15, I think it is. They've got quite a nice setting out of finance and finance options and sort of those kind of relative factors. So the things that you're going to find there will be, if you're going to go and approach someone for finance or for funding, clearly you've got to have your ducks in a row. And I find us small business owners very often will not have the necessary information available when we're asked to provide maybe a cash flow statement. Because at the end of the day, your investor or your financial institution wants to know that you can actually repay that loan, that revolving credit facility, or that overdraft. So you're going to have a bit of homework before you even have a chance of being successful. And so I always look at the cash flow statements, and when I prepare them, I like to do three sort of cash flow projections. One is very optimistic income and very expenses. In other words, I overstate the expenses and I understate the income. Then I'll do the opposite and I'll say, well, I'm going to have low income and still have the high expenses. And then clearly the third one is going to be an average of the two. And I think if you do those kind of cash flows, you're probably going to find somewhere you can get a bullseye and hit the target that you're trying to look at. And it gives you a very good idea of going forward where your business stands. And again, there's so many cash flow examples on the web. I think the Simply Biz website will have some examples. So yeah, that is very important for a funder, for finance, is because they want is cash flow. They don't want to take your car. They don't want to they take your farm and auction it off, because that's not the business they're in. And the other side of that, obviously, is if your credit worthiness is not up to scratch, that could be a problem for your business. So go and look for that free credit check, credit-worthy check. There's so many websites at the moment, and get your credit report and your credit score under control if there's a problem. And again, given the latest sort of attack on databases in South Africa, just be very careful about your ID number being out there, and make sure that any credit applications are actually made by you. So just be careful of that. But credit worthiness is integral, absolutely integral when you're applying for finance and funding. And whether your business is credit worthy and you're not, that is such an important issue. Because as you will know, if you've applied for funding, the institution does not only look at your business credit record, but they will look to you as a owner of that business and see what your own credit record is. And as you know, you get a pile of documents about this big to complete before you get any finance or funding decisions from all the financial institutions. So as much as I would like to say this, it is difficult at the moment to get finance, even though the interest rates are low. You need to have your ducks in a row. So you've got to have your cash flow statement. You've got to have that business plan that we always we always have on hand, says he tongue-in-cheek. Now, I know what happens with business plans. So you get asked to do a business plan, and you sit down and you actually work through this business plan, and you come up with a fantastic document that looks so motivating and so exciting, and you submit the business plan to the bank or the financial institution, and after a couple of days, you get a reply saying, I'm very sorry, we can't help you at this time. So what happens to that business plan then? Well, you throw it in the drawer. Bottom left-hand side drawer, and you don't look at the business plan again. But if you're lucky, and the bank or the financial institution phones you in a few days' time and says, you know what, Thayn, your business plan has been accepted. We're going to grant you the financial assistance that you require. What do you do with that business plan then? You put it in the bottom left-hand side drawer at the bottom of your desk, and you also don't look at it again. So it is such an important document, that business plan, not only for finance and funding, but also for your own business well-being going forward. So, and any application for finance and funding is also going to need your annual financial statements. So if you're behind with your tax returns, if you're behind with your financial statements as prepared by an accountant or an auditor, you're going to find some difficulty in getting finance and funding. So just be aware of that. Earlier on, I mentioned the financial institutions will look at the owner of the business also as being a surety, or they're going to look at your creditworthiness. Be aware of that. There are two documents that are incredibly important that the law requires them to be done and signed in writing. The one is offer to purchase of land or anything to do with land, and the other is a suretyship. So make sure that those suretyships are worth something by making your creditworthiness being absolutely impeccable. And if it's not impeccable, well, then maybe it would be a good time to actually address those credit situations that you have. So there you go. It's been 22 minutes. I've been over my time by 2 minutes, and I'm sure the organizers won't mind. I hope they don't. But maybe you have some questions you'd like to raise right now. I'm going to stay online for a few minutes and be available for any questions. So thanks, everybody. I am waiting for those $1 million questions. Okay, so the one question that I think will pop up is, should I, if I've decided that it's not viable to go forward, should I apply for liquidation or should I apply for business rescue? Well, I want to suggest you always look at business rescue as a first option. Thanks for the comment, Ilana, much appreciated. So the business rescue option is a win-win if it can work, and you basically are protected from your creditors for 6 months. If you can approach an attorney or an accountant or business rescue practitioner, there's a whole process you have to follow. So that process is going to determine whether your business will continue or not. But the big win there is you have to act immediately. If you're going to liquidation, well, then it's definitely all over, and you might have suretyships that you will have to pay into the business if there is not enough cash in the business to settle all the debts. So I think if you have to ever choose between liquidation and business rescue, you go for business rescue. But sadly, business rescue is only applicable to companies and closed corporations. So if you're one of those business owners that has decided to operate via an inter vivo trust or a family trust or a business trust, whatever you want to call it, that is not available to you. So there you might want to do, sit down with your creditors and do some sort of an arrangement or a compromise. So yeah, that's if you've now decided that's it, we can't do it anymore, we've given up. So I'm getting some nice comments. Thanks again, everyone. If there's no more questions, I will sign off. Here we go. So the essential guide for small businesses that I spoke about earlier on, it's an amazing, sorry, I'm being very bold to say it's amazing because I assisted with that guide. It can be downloaded for free on the Simply Biz website. They've logged the link under the chats, and please, it's got so much basic, practical, good information there. It's going to be well worth the few minutes that you take to read that guide. Also, and it sounds like I'm a salesman now, but also I think the guide is broken up in such a way that you don't have to read the whole book to get to the end. So you can choose a specific chapter that you can deal with, like what kind of entity I should use, and that kind of what financing options are there, what are the ratios, what do the banks look for, the financial institutions look for. So yeah, it's really is a worthwhile download, even if I say so myself. Thanks, Valencia. Thanks, Michaela. It was great. I appreciate you attending. And if there's no one else, I'm going to log off now. And thanks so much. And we'll see you on the other side.